Nope.
Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our episode 13 recap, the next to last episode of Survivor Season 40, Winners at War. Michael O'Brien starts it off with Alexa's talking to her family about the episode, and Phil is trying to get his computer to work. Actually, it was kind of like the opposite. I was talking to my family about the episode. Alexa, were you trying to get your computer to work?
My computer has been working pretty well. Though Phil, part of the reason we are slightly delayed is because I've been having tough service. Phil has bad service. So we kind of do this weird thing where we don't speak and just wait for the video quality to catch up. But we're here, we're alive. We've talked to our families about, or our quarantine people about this, and let's get into it. We have a lot to dive into here. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Is Michelle the MVP?
Everybody's going to say Tony, but it shouldn't be Tony. Yeah, everybody's going to say Tony. I figured
I would say it so that it maybe carried a little more weight. So that, because I'm a stan, but not to the stand that you are.
I won't like defend it. I will just say that, like, Nick, really, for this episode, maybe there shouldn't be an MVP. There should just be an LVP, and it would be Nick. And, like, I feel bad, but, like, Nick, how did you not see this? And I know it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but when I'm sitting there and at the final 7, Nick, Michelle, Jeremy, and Denise, I'm like, perfect. There's your 4. That's great. Michelle can win in that situation. Nick can win in that situation. Denise can win in that situation. And obviously, Jeremy can win in that situation. Jeremy goes to the final 3 in that situation. He wins. So what you do is you vote out Nick, you vote out Ben, who, yes, he's not really a threat to win right now. But if you vote him out, now Tony and Sarah have an uphill battle. It's easy to get rid of one of them next. You get rid of the other one later. I mean, there's so many variables here. But for that, like, I don't understand what Denise is doing. And we'll talk about that. But Nick's going to get the brunt of this. And I honestly, and I hate to be like this because I love Nick, but I think he deserves it in this situation. Because, like, what was he thinking when he decided to vote out? I know that, and I think I'm frozen, but I know he can't beat Jeremy. So that's just a fact. Nick is not going to beat him. Maybe he thinks he can beat Ben, but to get rid of Jeremy, you cut off a number. And now it's just you and Michelle. Denise has shown no motivation to flip. And you can't really get rid of Ben now. Like, you had such an easy opportunity. It was the split vote. It's exactly what Tony was able to pull off to get rid of Sophie. Had Nick done it here, Nick has a really good chance to win the game. And I love that Michelle just called him out afterwards. It was like, what? How do we get to the end now? Because you can't. Like, there's no way that Nick and Michelle could have both gotten there. Nick goes home. Michelle's still got an uphill battle to get there. We'll see who ends up coming back from Edge, but Michelle getting there is going to be really, really tough. So, I mean, it was just, it was a rough move. And I think Nick realized right away that it was the wrong move because he seemed bummed about it, but that could have just been the edit. It frustrated me. It frustrated me so, and it's not because I would have rather seen Ben go over Jeremy. It is because now Tony and Sarah's path to the end, and I don't think they're both going to get there together. I think one of them's going to get cut, but one of those two is making it to the final 3. I would be floored if one of those two wasn't sitting in the final 3.
Mm-hmm. And I think what this episode really boils down to, and we can talk about, Jeremy, Nick, Michelle, like every single person we saw have this kind of struggle with is how, like, I'm getting this wrong, how they're perceiving who they're with. Mm-hmm. Why are we so desperate to get rid of Michelle? Michelle has, in her own words, just swung and missed many, many times. Why does anybody not want to get rid of Tony? He's told everyone that he is an idol. Why would you want to go to the end with him? Who possibly thinks that they can beat him? Sarah is the only person who I think can carry that conversation. Why did Jeremy go to Tony about this blindside? Why didn't he go to Denise? As soon as he went to Tony, that really just went backwards, and that made me realize that they are all trusting Tony, but what is it? What am I not seeing that everyone else is blinded by?
Tony's just amazing. I mean, Tony's just an incredible, incredible Survivor player, and his social game is criminally underrated. And everybody, I remember when he won Kagay on, they always said, like, he's the better version of Russell. He's the Russell who can win. But I think that's even, like, the wrong way to describe him, because his social game is leaps and bounds better than a lot of social players of Survivor. Like, he's an unbelievable, like, what's deceiving about Tony, because we see his chaos and his strategy and all of that. At the end of the day, he's a social player. He did to Jeremy exactly what he did to LJ and Cagayan. Mm-hmm. He just blindsides him. He tricks him the entire time into thinking he's good, vote after vote after vote after vote. So much so that when Jeremy wants to pull a blindside, Jeremy goes to Tony while Tony is getting ready to vote him out. Now, we all sit there and we say, Jeremy's an idiot. But Jeremy's not seeing the confessionals Tony's giving, where Tony's saying, I got to get rid of Jay. I got to get rid of him at some point. I like him, but I'm going to have to get rid of him. Like, I'm lying to Jay. I'm lying to him. Like, Jeremy doesn't know that's going on. And so because of that, like, it's just easy to pull the wool, like, over your eyes. Tony is just, he's unbelievable. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. I'm more bummed from a fan standpoint that it seems so easy for Sarah and Tony right now. Going into the final 6, I would have loved Ben goes out at 7. And then let's say like Sarah or Nick go out at 6, or Jeremy, let's say Jeremy or Sarah, like Jeremy, Sarah, Tony, whoever, doesn't matter who goes out, but like, imagine going into this final 6, knowing somebody's going to come back from the edge. And also, like, Tony has an uphill battle to get there. Michelle has an uphill battle to get there. Sarah, if she was still in the game, would have an uphill battle to get there. Jeremy, if he was still in the game, would have an uphill battle to get there. Like, it's just so much more entertaining to not really know what's going on. Whereas right now, I feel like it's 4 versus Michelle. Somebody's going to come in from edge, probably with an idol. That's at least what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's going to be Tyson, or it's going to be Natalie, or it's going to be Boston Rob. That's my opinion. Maybe they're going to be able to work something. But I don't know, like, how you're going to be able to decimate all 3 or 2. You need to get rid of 2 of the huge stretch, which is Sarah and Tony. They're going to win the game. I don't know how you get rid of them. I just don't know.
Yeah, and you're right about the Jeremy thing. Jeremy has had reason to trust Tony, but I guess I'm confused that Denise is the only person who has yet brought up Tony's name, and no one even took it seriously. And Ben, who said, I'm clearly not making friends, no one has given me fire tokens, which is something that I didn't really consider, but that's one way to see how the jury perceives you. And then still wants to go to the end with Tony. I don't see why, I guess why people think they can beat him. I don't know. And Tony ends up, gunning for Denise. I guess we should probably go more chronologically, but it's just really shocking to me that Alexa's eyes getting big every time Phil Freeze becomes disable the show. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to send you a signal.
No, I can tell when it's happening, and I will actually repeat my sentence half the time.
Oh, that's smart, because I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I know it's tricky. Sorry, guys. Arizona, anybody who lives in Arizona, worst internet, like, of all time. This is like, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm in the Phoenix area. Internet should be good. Like, I'm not in the boonies like I was. Like, this should be really good internet. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, continue.
But I will say, and this is the one thing that my whole family has said, this entire episode, Michelle and I guess Tony, she's the only person who knew exactly what was going on. She has a complete understanding of everyone's place, and no one else is either seeing it, and also no one else is regarding it. The conversation between Michelle and Sarah was so incredibly frustrating to watch. And I am a huge Sarah fan, but I also don't like when people are dismissive, and everyone was just so dismissive to Michelle. And we're on a season where you need to dethrone people. Michelle is serving herself up, and no one is taking the bait. And I found that to be really frustrating.
It is frustrating, and maybe it's on the editing of the season. Maybe the editing on this season has just gone maybe for more of like the shock value, great gameplay. I mean, there's crazy gameplay going on. There's no denying that. And maybe they've chosen to highlight that more than they've chosen to highlight the alliances, because really the only 2 alliances, or the only alliance we really have seen really hard the entire season, are Tony and Sarah. Everything else has felt like a fake alliance with Tony. And maybe that's the truth, and maybe that's why we're getting it. But it was bizarre to me that Denise wasn't somebody that Jeremy wanted to bring. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I'm surprised that Jeremy wasn't saying, we got to go get Denise, not we got to go get Tony, because how does Denise think she's going to beat Ben and Sarah at this point? Like, I know she got rid of the queen, but every time Denise would give her speech, it was, I got rid of the queen, I've won 2 immunities, and I found an idol. in today's day and age of Survivor, that doesn't mean anything. Getting rid of the queen is great, but that happened pre-merge.
I'm going to disagree with that. When she, during the recap, which is apparently controversial, we'll get to that. She really lays out her whole game plan, or her whole resume. I was pretty impressed with that, and I actually feel like Denise has been violently under edited this season. And I don't love I don't love speculating this far with the edit, but I don't think Denise is going to win just because we've been seeing nothing of her. But when she said all of that, I was like, okay, then I wish I had gotten more from her. And especially tonight when she Zayn knighted herself, but actually did it correctly. I was like, this is not how she's going to go out. This is not how she plays. I don't get it. And so I really would have liked to see more. I really would have liked to see more of that, especially how did she get in with that tight three? Since when has she been BFFs with them? I did not know that.
And maybe Denise's game is just impossible to edit because it was kind of similar. It was kind of similar in Philippines. We could never really tell where she was. She was always with Malcolm, but where else was she throughout that season? And she plays a great game. Like, I'm not trying to knock Denise's game here because I do think Denise is playing a very good game. It's just when you think about that resume compared to what we know Tony has and what we know Sarah has. And then you even look at Michelle, who, even though she's been on the wrong side of every vote, every time somebody hands their fire tokens over, they're going to Michelle. Michelle's getting one almost every single time. So because that's happening, I start to sit here and I'm like, why does Denise feel so confident? I get thinking you can beat Ben. No argument here. But why are you so much more confident that you can beat Sarah or Tony than that you can beat Nick or Michelle? Like, I feel like you'd want to go to the end. I'm sitting here as a viewer on the outside looking in, and I'm saying, I'm Denise. I want to go with the four of Nick, Michelle, and Jeremy. Because if you go the other way, like she did, Tony, you can't beat. Sarah, you can't beat. Ben, you can beat, but you're going to be stuck with one of them. On the other side, all you got to do is get rid of Jeremy. You're going to beat Michelle or Nick in all likelihood, or at least it's going to be very, very even. You have somebody coming in anyway. I don't really understand like what her thinking was. And I think it's just from the edit perspective. It's so hard to edit like somebody who's a player like Denise. It's easy for us to get frustrated with it and be like, why aren't we seeing more? Why aren't we seeing more? But maybe it's just not there. And maybe this is the extent of her relationship and why she feels so comfortable with them.
Yeah. And obviously this season has been super fluid, and, you know, Jeremy was on the outside, and then Jeremy became a lion. So I get all of that moving. But yeah, I don't know. I think this episode, I mean, it has kind of already been sealed. I think this episode, they really just showed that Ben has no chance of winning. I think Ben is very likely your zero vote finalist. One thing that I will give Ben, because I know he's like getting a lot of flack, which is not deserved, but I thought it was a really cool editing trick, and I saw a lot of people posting about this too. Early on in this episode, that fire is popping, and it is popping loud, and Ben is sitting there, and you're frozen, but I'm going to keep going with it. He's sitting there, and he's there with the fire, and those who remember from Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, he had really strong reactions to that in his first season. So I thought that was a really cool way to show, not just like from an editing perspective, his growth, but I thought that was really cool to see, because there were a lot of personal conversations, especially at the first tribal council, about dealing with the aftermath of playing this game and going back to real life, and Ben saying he had trouble trusting his own wife. I just thought that was really nice. I thought that was a really good touch to add.
As they say in the cinematic classic, I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. It's like a circle, you know, and that's what happened with Ben. I even wrote that down. I said Ben with the fire, like gunshots, just like in his first season where he had the PTSD moment, and now he's not having that. He just walks away. We don't get the confessional. I completely agree. I thought that was a really cool editing trick. I want to bring up Brandon Jason Grosso here. So he actually put two comments in here that I thought were really, really good. His first one here, I got to find it because I had the second one up. Where was it? I lost it. He had two really good comments, so I'm just going to go with the one. Oh, here's the first one. Pre-merge matters, so because pre-merge are on the jury. That's very true. I should probably be paying attention to that more, because
and also her pre-merge move was like the Queen Slayer. Like that's I guess the biggest pre-merge move you could ever have.
Yeah. And then the second one here is, he says, Michelle is a GOAT in their perception. Tony said she's not on the right side of any vote. But what Tony also said is that's not good to have around in this season, and he's got to get her out. And we kind of talked about this a little bit on the Jamal episode, because if I'm sitting down and I got to rank my 1 to 5, who's got the best chance to win going into this finale, screw Edge of Extinction, just these 5, who's got the best chance? Number 1 is Tony, number 2 is Sarah, 3 is Michelle, 4 is Denise, 5 is Ben. That's based on the edit. That's based on what we've seen. That's based on everything that's going on. I got no shot for Ben. And I give 4th to Denise because Michelle, even though she's been on every single wrong side, and I'm waiting for the Phil, Michelle could literally light herself on fire and Phil would say it was a good idea. But this is not the point there. Her relationships, every time she's getting tokens. And I know that the Edge of Extinction, they're probably not going to vote for a player like her to win. But that's why I'm giving the edge over Denise. Because even though Denise might be playing a better game and has been on the right side of a lot more votes and all of that, Michelle's built the relationships. And I just haven't seen Denise building the relationships. And Ben, we know, hasn't built the relationships because he's blatantly said it tonight. Relationships are key. And Tony and Sarah have built the best ones. But I think Michelle, for somebody who has played as bad as Michelle has played in terms of voting strategy, she's played unbelievably to get people to like her on the jury because she hasn't voted right for any of them. So nobody's hurt by her. It's so bizarre. So
it really is. So I guess the one thing that I'll give Denise is, because we did just talk about how you can't really edit Denise's game, and we clearly don't know who she's aligned with. She and Ben apparently have been aligned since way back when he helped her find that idol. But Denise is getting tons of tokens. Denise had 6, I think. And so every single person is most people who are voted off are giving them to Denise. So I think that's kind of a subtle hint that, again, it's probably similar to Michelle. People are just not mad at her. And to give Michelle, the jury, I think, is liking her, like you said, when she was holding that coin and when she was tormenting herself with Jeff. And you see everyone there, Parvati was I'd be freaking out, they're on the edge of their seats. That's just good. They need entertainment out there. So I think for both the jury and for us as a viewer, what I've liked about Michelle is I find her to be so relatable and so endearing and so normal. I feel like one of my friends is out there playing. Just the way she talks to us is very matter of fact, and it's very observant, and she's not overthinking. She's just perceiving everything correctly. And I think she has the confidence throughout playing this season that, people tried to knock her down when she first won. She's made it this far. And I think if she gets to the end, she has a really, really compelling argument. And I would understand if she didn't get votes, and I would understand if they tore her down, but she's made it this far, and you know what? She was supposed to go home tonight, and she came through in the clutch, and she won that immunity.
And I think that was very telling too, because even though we didn't see it, I think Jeremy probably went there and said, Michelle voted with me. Everybody knows that Michelle was working with Jeremy. So Jeremy does it. Michelle's able to come and really, pitch I was supposed to go home today. I won the immunity challenge when you needed to. That's what you're supposed to be able to do. And I agree with you. That's why I think Michelle would be MVP tonight. Calling Tony MVP is just too easy. And at the end of the day, Tony didn't want to get rid of Jeremy, and he got rid of Jeremy. Going into tonight, his plan was not get rid of Jeremy first. He did get rid of Nick, which is what he wanted. But he wanted Nick and Michelle gone, and he had to get rid of Jeremy and Nick. And I think that's very, very different. That's a different scenario. Tony, he's positioned better. So it's easier to say he's the MVP because he's positioned. He's probably going to win the game from what I'm watching. And if he wins the game, he'd be MVP of every single episode because every move he made is the correct move. But in terms of how tonight went down when her back was against the wall, Michelle won the immunity challenge. And that's huge. She won the immunity challenge. She was 100% right in what she said to Nick because Nick's the next one going. It felt like, and I know we just had Kat Ederson on here, it felt like Troy Zan saying to Kat, if you don't vote out Kim now, you're going next. And then she goes next and she's like, oh my God, how'd you do that? Nick was floored that he went home. Mm-hmm. He was floored. And it was so obvious to all of us. And it was so obvious. Yes, as a viewer, we get so much more information than the players actually get on the island. We know everything that's going on. But the fact that Michelle could tell Nick it was the wrong move, you're going to go next or I'm going to go next, and then that happened, she's viewing this game. She had a better perception of what was actually happening in this game than what Nick had. And that's just a fact.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how Michelle won that individual immunity with her eyes being so blinded by the pearly whites of Tony's inner thighs. Those broke my TV screen. They were.
Why not just take your pants off, dude, and just wear your underwear?
Why did you wear your boxers? It was so good.
I mean, Wendell doesn't wear clothes. Like Wendell doesn't wear clothes. Yule's not wearing clothes, and Tony's out here and he's got his cargo
Tony's
shorts.
Tony's a family man.
1993 nice cargo shorts rolled up into his underwear. Like, it's so unbelievable.
I couldn't pay attention because I was staring at his thighs the whole time. That is not something that I want anyone to cut and post on the internet, but I stand by it.
I did say I wanted Michelle's gif of the na you can't get me. Somebody needs to gift that because that was phenomenal. That was
whenever I wanted a gif of Nora spinning her buff last season, that's that Anthony Survivor gifts guy. I would hit him up.
I'm gonna have to because
he always likes her tweet.
I need
anyways. That was huge. But what'd you think of that disadvantage? That was a 30% disadvantage. That's huge.
Yeah, Ben was able to manage it.
Yeah, he crushed it.
Ben was really good, and I think I'm actually surprised he was as good in this challenge as possible, because normally you have to be like a certain height. You don't want to be like Julie Rosenberg height, because then it's hard to pick your legs up to get over those things. But being as tall as Ben, you're just a little bit more like gangly. It's just easier to knock over something, and he didn't mess up once. And I mean, Michelle won. I don't know if anybody saw that. Michelle won that immunity challenge, but Ben was very good in it. And what I liked about this disadvantage, this is one disadvantage that really worked because Edge of Extinction was there. Because by having Edge of Extinction, Ben doesn't know that it came from somebody in the game. He's probably thinking somebody on Edge was just pissed and Jeremy did it because Jeremy hates Ben. And he's probably thinking that, not even realizing that it was Nick and Michelle. And what's so funny is Nick thinks he's in this great, amazing position because he was able to play the disadvantage on Ben. Ben used it, all of that. And he's going home that night anyway, whether he plays that on Ben or not. Like, it's so crazy, like the layers that went into that episode.
Yeah. And this shows how difficult it is to keep track of fire tokens. I didn't realize that Nick had 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he went and got 2 from Michelle. I was waiting for him to go to Tony to ask for 2 from Tony, and I was about to just like jump off the first floor here. I would only land like I was frozen, so I just.
So I started.
It's really bad tonight. I don't know why it's so terrible.
But I did a little dance because someone said I should start dancing when you freeze. And you're frozen again. Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back. You were making a point that was probably a good one. But there's no better way to transition into Edge of Extinction trash rant than that. Natalie Anderson knew exactly where to go. Talk to me, Phil.
Look, good for Natalie. Good for Natalie, but it is a problem that like she was there for 32 days. That's why she knows where everything is. And now she had 14 fire tokens.
Holy 14. We should do like double prop bet points for those who had Natalie Anderson.
Oh my God, 14 fire tokens.
Like a bucket of money.
So many that she gave an idol to Tyson.
Yeah, an idol that looks like a bad ankle bracelet that I made at summer camp 15 years ago. I
know. It's very, very strange, but they both had the same one too. All 3 of them, they actually have like the same looking idols. So all the idols are identical now all of a sudden again.
And I kind of missed this, but what was it about Tyson specifically? Because is it because he has like a really good chance of getting back? Okay. Yeah, same.
I have no idea. I really don't. And
her and Amber seemed really tight, and her and Parvati seemed really tight.
I thought she would have given it to Parvati, and that's why I was really shocked that she gave it to Tyson. Maybe she just thinks Tyson has the best chance to get back in, and Boston Rob already has one, and she has one, and maybe she thinks those are the 3 best chances. But I would have thought she would have given it to Parvati because her and Parvati looked like they were working hand in hand the entire time.
Yeah, and I love that Natalie finds the advantage, and it's just like story time. Like everyone's just like comes and hangs out with her. So now I understand that I'm about to be really contradictory with what I'm saying. It would have been really cool to see like the decision between how they priced it out at 8 fire tokens, how they decided on Nick. But I understand that would have taken up a lot of screen time. So I want to be cognizant of that.
Yes. I totally agree. And I was just confused because we haven't seen Natalie and Tyson like bond at all, really. And like they weren't on the same starting tribe or anything. And why didn't she give it to Jeremy, considering Jeremy's her guy? Maybe she just thinks Jeremy has no shot of getting back in because he has no advantages in the challenges, because again, he gets punished for finishing 7th rather than finishing 20th. But hey, that's neither here nor there.
I'm going to think it's because she thinks Tyson has a good chance getting back because he obviously got back the first go round.
Yeah, no, that makes the most sense. And honestly, like if you look at what kind of challenge these things normally are, Tyson definitely has the best chance to win these challenges. I mean, he's just a beast. He's fit for these. Although Yule is another person to watch out for in this challenge, because remember, he had no advantages in that first challenge and still almost got his way back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yule, if you think about it, okay, good. I didn't say another word. I just waited for you to unfreeze. If you really think about it, Yule kind of has similar edit to Chris, where like he was there for a little bit and then he disappeared and he hasn't been around, and all of a sudden he's going to come back in the game. We're going to go, oh, Yule, he did it. Yes, Yule's going to win the game. But I don't know. I just thought, I was surprised with the Tyson thing. I really thought we were going to get the Edge challenge tonight.
I did. I thought so too. I think it was 9.
It was like 9:45.
I think Jeff read the votes at 9:30. So I was like, whoa, we're doing it.
I mean, it was so early. And I just didn't understand that. And so I understand like next week, what's probably going to happen is we're probably going to start the episode with Jeff being like, we're not live this year because of the coronavirus. And there's going to be some talk about that. But it feels like they took the first 10 minutes from next week and put it as the last 10 minutes for this week. And I got to be honest, I'd rather watch it at the beginning of next week because, what is Alexa doing that for?
I disagree with you, and you're frozen.
Oh, maybe I'm frozen,
no,
but I feel like I'm talking.
But I am not.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking fine.
Oh, give me your side of this.
I like when episodes start off with a recap. I like when, like, the whole point is like previously on Survivor, and here's the story to get here. And I think it would have been much better had somebody won Edge of Extinction tonight, and next week's episode starts off with, here's our final 6. The stories that they showed for all the final 5, and then the story they could show for the person from Edge. I think that would be amazing. I think that would be really cool. I understand why you don't put the Edge challenge in this episode, because it's the drama of starting off next week. Who's going to come back? Water cooler talk that none of us have water coolers unless you have one in your house. But like, I still think that the way that this shaped up, I would have liked to have seen, the challenge, the excitement, the person going back to camp. They're all excited. And it's like, whoever goes back, I'm going to say Natalie because she had 14 freaking tokens, but Natalie saying like, you know what, guys? Game on. And then it ends, and the next week starts with this whole story. Natalie voted off first. I mean, you could see the remnants of it anyway, because Jeff said Natalie was voted off first, and she's standing there on Edge with like her hands on her hips. You could have had so much. So I think that it should have been at the beginning of next week, but I'm curious to see what you liked about this.
And I totally get that, especially from a continuity standpoint. But for me, I think I didn't feel like I missed out on any strategy tonight. I felt like they told the story really well in an hour and a half. So 90-minute episodes would be awesome. Neither here nor there. I like that I agree with you. Saving the challenge for next week, completely agree with that. It adds tension, gets everyone excited. This was just all of the lead up of like Amber giving that fantastic confessional, just talking about Edge of Extinction. They saved all of that for this week. We do not have to, there's no emotion, no like emotional Edge of Extinction now. So next week we can go straight into the challenge. It's probably going to be just like it was the first go round. With this recap, I feel like we're saving time for next week. And we are likely, and dare I say it, hopefully going to be spending very little time on this Zoom conference call and 2.5 hours on this finale. There are going to be 6 people to get rid of. I want to see every single reason why people go home, why people voted the way that they did. And so having this recap now saves 10 minutes next week. And it made me really nostalgic, and it made me really, really sad that this is the last time we're watching Survivor for the foreseeable future. And I know that, I know it's going to come back. I know we don't know when. yes, CBS just released their broadcast schedule, but they still need to actually film it. But I liked it. I felt like this was a really good way to round it out. I don't know how they're going to round it out next week in terms of, like Jeff actually completing the segment. And I don't know. It saves time next week, and it made me feel really nostalgic. So I was all for it. And whoever said they would have preferred the fallen comrades, hell no.
So my only problem is I don't think it saves time next week because this was about 10 minutes, and I feel like next week the challenge is probably going to take up about 10 minutes. So I feel like if you would have put the challenge here, it would have taken up the same amount of time, and then they probably would have had a shorter preview at the beginning of next week. Look, it's a minor thing. I do agree with that.
I liked having a long preview. I liked recapping it, and
I kind of thought it was weird though that then it was like after that ended, they were like, "Okay, stay tuned for scenes from our next episode." I'm like, didn't we just watch like the preview for next week? Like, I remember Classic Survivor.
It was all pointless. Like, it wasn't anything we needed. It was like Sarah being like, I want to win, which hopefully she does. But what I did like, and I want the intro back, and I want the previously on, I want all that back. But what I did think was cool about the first Edge of Extinction reentry challenge is you're watching whatever you're watching, and that's immediately what you go to. I think that's that's pretty powerful as a viewer, so I do like that. But I get that I'm in the minority, but I complain a lot, and this is one thing I'm actually really happy with.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. I that's fine. Something I think we should talk about for sure, though, that we kind of glossed over is Denise's actual strategy tonight at that last tribal council. And Denise's strategy. So I know she's going to get a lot of flack for this. And I know we already kind of gave some flack to Denise because I don't believe at least that she has a chance to win going into this finale. But her whole entire pitch of, I know I'm probably going to go, I know I'm in trouble, but I'd like to be able to go over with rice in my belly. I think it works because you're going to Edge, there's going to be a challenge right away. You got to make sure you can't use the fire tokens for anything else. I mean, which is kind of crazy that the fire tokens just like went out like that. I think they got to figure out a better ending for the fire tokens. Yeah, with an absolute fizzle. They got to figure out a better way than that because, I mean, people have been talking about fire tokens all season, and all we get at the end is Denise buying rice so that everybody can eat, which to me just seems ridiculous. And waiting. There we go. We're back. And so like, I don't like that it kind of just fizzled like that, but I did think Denise's strategy was solid here. And I hope she doesn't get too much hate for this because I saw a tweet and I forget who it was from, but Denise is sitting here saying, oh, if I go, I go, I go, I go. And people are buying it. But then remember, she immediately goes to the well and is talking to Ben and Sarah and says, all right, I got to make sure I go to the final three with you two, not with Tony. So she was still playing the game. This was just part of her strategy. This is kind of what Ben had to do back in his season, obviously to a more extreme, but there was no giving up. There was no quitting here. So that's just how I feel about that. And also don't dab.
I was wondering if you caught that. I don't have any dance moves, and I thought that
I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah, I thought that'd be nice and controversial. And for those of you at home, if Phil freezes, I will dab again. So let's hope his internet holds up.
No, it's not going to.
It felt like a strategy because that is not Denise's game to give up. That is not any of these people. I would have been shocked if anybody actually gave up. I'm with you. I think buying the rice was really good for goodwill. And normally I would say like, oh, like being nice doesn't mean anything on Survivor. But I think in this season it really does. And they talked about that at the first tribal council where these personal relationships, or maybe it was the second one, I really don't know. These personal relationships really do mean something. And yes, it's very game body, but it doesn't feel it. The game's fast paced, but it doesn't feel like they don't care about each other. So it seemed really weird to me that, and I'm sure Denise said it, so I want to rewatch because I'm sure she actually told us why she was doing it. But I think, I wonder if people bought it, and I think it maybe was done to make Nick feel really comfortable. I think it worked. And I think it worked. Nick obviously felt super comfortable. I don't think anybody, I guess, except for Nick and Michelle bought that she was giving up. But I think in the moment I didn't get it. But then when it worked, I was like, all right, I thought that was a good strategy. I think she could use that if she gets to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it did work on Nick. And this is why I think it's crazy that Denise, we haven't seen so much of like why she's so comfortable with them and why she didn't side with Nick, Michelle, and Jeremy. It was super believable that she was the odd one out. Like Nick believed that Denise was the odd one out. Michelle believed that Denise was the odd one out. So if Denise is able to pitch this, I understand that you think it gets you to the final four, but like you should also be aware that like if they're able to pitch it this convincingly, that probably does mean you're the odd one out.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree. And I actually thought Denise was going to go home tonight. I thought they were going to get rid of her. But I don't know. This was a big episode. I feel for him. This was a tough one.
Yeah, this was a tough one for Nick. I mean, I did have Denise and Jeremy as my bottom two in the power rankings this week, so I really did expect Denise to go home. I'm surprised she's still in, and I don't know what her path is going to be when this next episode starts. I'm really curious who's going to come back, because if somebody like let's say Natalie comes back, I think Natalie works with Michelle. But I think if Natalie gets to the end, as crazy as it sounds, she could get some of Michelle's votes because she spent so much time on the edge with people that were loyal to Michelle. Parvati, is somebody, I don't even know who else, but Parvati is definitely one that comes to mind. And that's somebody who I could see voting for Natalie at the end of this. If Tyson comes back, who is Tyson? Crazy. So he could go after anybody. And there's the dab. Tyson could go after anybody if this were to happen. So like, where would he lie? If it's Boston Rob who comes back, does he just immediately gun for, Michelle, because Michelle was on his starting tribe and was part of the reason he got he wasn't. Maybe he goes for Sarah and Ben because they were the reason he got voted off. Like, there's so many layers to who comes back and how that's going to impact the game that, like, I don't see anybody coming back though and being like, Denise is my girl. I want to go to the end with Denise. I got to work with Denise. I feel like they're going to go to Michelle because they know she's on the outs and try to take out the Sarahs, the Bens, the Tonys. And maybe you just end up going to the end with Denise anyway, but I don't know.
I have to assume that no matter who it is, whoever comes back from the edge is going to target Tony because they know there's a reason we saw Boston Rob say like, "Damn, Tony's a boss." This is the Rick Devens. This feels very similar to that. I feel like the only way that Tony doesn't win is if this edge person comes back and does exactly what Chris did and said, "Guys, like Victoria is going to win. Rick Devens is going to, or I guess not really Rick. Victoria's going to win. Tony's going to win. We have to band together, and it's just a matter of whether or not they do that."
Yeah, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to get Tony because he got an idol. And I guess he can play it at Final Five, so he'll be able to play it at 6 and 5. So he's still got it for 2 things here. And like, clearly whoever comes back from Edge is going to be a really good challenge competitor. But Tony's got 2 get out of jail frees, and Ben still has his idol. So like, there still could be some maneuvering there where they're able to work together to kind of figure out how to use those idols. If Tony really wants to go to the end with Ben and Sarah, which I think he does, because I think he knows they both wipe the floor with Ben, he's okay losing to Sarah, and he still knows he can beat Sarah. So I think he wants to go to the end with Sarah and have Ben be that 3rd place GOAT. So like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if the person's going to be able to get Tony right away. Remember, Victoria didn't have anything. She had no defense in Edge of Extinction. And so when Chris came back and decided he wanted to get out Victoria was just sitting there and was like, oh, okay, I played a really great game, and now I'm going to go home because a guy was voted out on day 8 and didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I think, you bring up a good point about Tony, like, wanting to go to the end with Sarah. And he did say that. He was like, I'm willing to lose to you, which shows that this is a season of relationships. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that, I think that was just really telling. And that does make sense why he doesn't want to go up against Michelle, because I think now that we're talking it out, now that I'm really thinking about it, if it's Tony, Michelle, and Ben, again, and for those of you who like think we're annoying about Michelle, I guess I'm sorry you're still listening. But Michelle and Tony have just such different stories. So if you're a juror that is just more simpatico with her kind of story, and against like Tony, who is like, one of the best players ever played a game, you're gonna relate more to Michelle, so you're gonna vote for her. So I actually get why he doesn't want her. I think I saw someone post on Twitter that when there's, in a final three, the odd man out usually wins, or the odd man out does really well, and Michelle would be the odd man out there. So I get it. I get why he doesn't want to go with her.
I hate to be like this, but I'm going to bring up politics very briefly. But it's like how there's very opposite ends of the spectrum in like politics. It's because it's easier to beat somebody who seems like they're completely against, or it's easier to get a vote when somebody feels like they're completely against you. But it's hard because you'll never get the vote of the person who is always going to be against you. So like the people who are always going to like Michelle are never going to vote for Tony because they're so opposite. But if you're going on like this same platform, then it's easier actually, like if you are better on that platform, because whoever's against your platform doesn't have a choice but to vote for one of the people on the platform. I know that's like a weird thing, but like it's just the only way I can think of it is like,
that's completely true. Oh, he froze. Should I dab? What should I do, guys? I don't have any.
No, you're good. You're good. I know you were about to completely agree with me.
I was, but I was debating what my dance move was, and I didn't want to dab because I didn't want to lose thousands of more followers. So
yeah,
stay in put.
But at the same time, I just agree with that. Yeah, I just think it's an easy thing. I mean, or you could just do it as sports. If you don't want to call it Republican versus Democrat, you call it Red Sox versus Yankees. People love like the Yankees because there's the clean cut, whatever. And then the Red Sox had Johnny Damon looking like Jesus. Like there's a difference there. Or they just hate people from Boston's accents because people from New York have better accents. Like there's just this different.
What a day.
I know that would make Alexa mad. But like, I'm just saying, like when there's opposites, you can never convince somebody who's always going to be on the opposite side to vote for you because they're always going to have the opposite take. It's why, like, if you swim at a wall, like, it's never going to happen. But if you have the same, if it's two teams that like get like two teams that are harmless, when the Rangers play the freaking, Astros, until the Astros did what they did this year, but like, who cares? People in Texas care, but we don't in the rest of the country. It's just like Sarah and Tony play the same game. And if Tony really believes he played a better version of the game that both he and Sarah played, he can beat Sarah. But him and Michelle play so opposite that if there's people who just respect Michelle's social game more than Tony's, he literally has no way of being able to get people on his side to not vote for Michelle. There's no way to convince them. It's why Michelle beat Aubrey the first time. I really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So, Team Michelle. Or Team Tony. I mean, here's the thing. If Tony ends up winning, I'm happy. It feels super obvious, and I'm gonna say that. And everyone complained about Tommy being obvious last season, but conveniently no one's complaining about Tony being obvious. But on all 5/12 of these players who could win, I'd be happy with any of them. This has been a really, really good season.
Now, would you be happy, and I got to ask this before we get into, what's going to happen next week and all that. Would you be happy if Natalie Anderson came back and won?
It would make a good story.
See, I'm so torn on this one.
So, no.
I'm so torn because, like I said last week, I don't believe that she deserved to be the first boot. And I think that it was production is the reason why Natalie Anderson was the first boot. I'm not saying production rigged it, but by production putting her on the same tribe as Jeremy, Natalie Anderson was the first boot. I respect what she's done. It's part of the game. She comes in. She's the first boot, comes all the way back and gets there. But if the first boot of an all-winners season wins all winners when there's this much chaos and so much going on in the actual game, I just can't get behind it. But then at the same time, I would be happy for Natalie more so than a lot of the other players on Edge because I don't feel that she deserved to be the first boot. And I'm not a Natalie Anderson stan. Like that's not, I don't really like Sam Wandel-Sir. I think she played a good game, but I don't think she played as good as a lot of like the really big Sam Wandel-Sir fans believe she played. But like, I would be happier for her than let's say like Danny. And I liked Danny a lot more than Natalie coming into the season. But if Danny comes back and gets to the end and even gets one vote, I'm going to be like, damn, but she didn't have to do anything, so it's tough.
Yeah, I know that I feel like I'm moving the goalposts here, but like if, like gun to my head, if an Edge of Extinction or Edge of Extinction returnee has to be the winner, in my mind, it would either have to be Nick or Natalie. because anybody else is is pretty Chris Underwoody to me. Nick is the easy one because Nick was literally just playing. What I will give Natalie, and what if she's in that final three, and if she's pitching it, she almost has to pitch it as if she was playing a different show. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know. I wouldn't vote for that, but she can't really say like, oh, here's my resume. Her win or any of their wins would have had to be a purely social game, which is a perfectly acceptable way to win. But I don't see it. I don't really know how you sell it, but I think the only person who could do it is Natalie, because it was her entire story.
Yeah, if I got to go down the line of just everybody on edge, Natalie could sell it. Amber's got no shot. Boston Rob's got no shot, I don't think. I mean, unless maybe he's able to get back in and cause some chaos with his idol and be like, I'm Boston Rob, I did this. Maybe. But like Adam's got no shot. Wendell's got no shot. Yule, I don't think has any chance in hell. Danny, all of that. I think you have to go from pretty much Natalie all the way down to Jeremy. And I think Jeremy's probably the next player who could win. Just because it was very recent and he could come back in and he could be the one to dethrone Tony. But then again, if it's Michelle versus Jeremy and Denise in the final three, how do you give it to Jeremy over Michelle, who stayed in at the vote that Jeremy went home, when if Jeremy didn't go and she would have given the flip a coin to Jeremy, Michelle would have been the one to go home. So like, how can you really pitch that? So I think that the person who comes back from Edge is probably, if they get to the final three, going to get a vote or two here and there. I don't think they have a chance at all of winning. I don't think we're getting a repeat of Chris. So that's all.
Yeah, I'm with you. And when you said Jeremy, I really wonder, let's say you have a Jeremy, Michelle, Ben final three. I actually think Jeremy could beat her, and I don't agree with that, and I don't like that, but I think Jeremy is so well respected, and I think he and kind of like what we were just talking about, the two different platforms, he and Michelle are running on the same platform, so I actually think that they might pick him over, that they would pick him over her,
which would be crazy considering I
would absolutely hate that.
Yeah, absolutely, because she would be the one. Yeah, there you go, click it, because she would be the one who literally survived that moment. And there's Once Upon an Island saying, love this podcast. Go watch Once Upon an Island stuff, everybody. Go watch his story. He did his Boston Rob one. It's amazing. Go watch it. And that's from a guy who trashes Boston Rob every week.
Oh no, it's frozen.
Frozen because Alexa's frozen, so I know that. But yeah, I really believe this is down to three people. I really believe that. And I think it's really down to two people, but I'm going to pretend it's down to three. It's down to Tony and Sarah. The only one who can win, I think, other than Tony and Sarah, is Michelle. I don't think Denise can win. I don't think Ben can win. And I don't think the Edge of Extinction person can win. And I'm, as a Michelle stan, I'm saying the only way Michelle wins is if she pulls off something absolutely ridiculous in this final five. And she cannot sit next to, I mean, she would actually almost be better off sitting next to both Sarah and Tony than sitting next to just one or the other. Because if you sit next to Sarah and Tony, as I was saying with this whole platform thing, Tony and Sarah are going to battle back and forth for votes. And anybody who just didn't agree with their game is going to completely vote for Michelle. So I really think those are the only ones who have a chance to win. I just don't see Denise or Ben having enough friends over on the Edge. And I just think whoever comes back from Edge, somebody like Adam Klein, if Adam Klein votes for a person who is voted out of Survivor to win Survivor, no, we're taking his tell-all down. I'm blocking his number. It's over.
I think we can talk about this ad nauseum, and I think in some situations they get votes. I think the way that this is coming together, the Edge of Extinction person, if they're in the finale, get completely blanked. They don't get a single vote.
Completely agree. Completely agree. But then again, there is like Amber, who might not know anybody here. There is, so there's still a chance. But that's pretty much where I stand on this. Alexa, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Oh, one other thing I did want to talk about was I kind of like that after Jeremy went home, I liked the Michelle and Sarah conversation.
Loved
because
it.
I feel like this was probably the first time that Michelle really started to stand up for herself against them, because she realized that there was no longer a shield for her and she had to take her entire own game into her hands. And I love this conversation because I loved how like mad Sarah was like getting at her. And it was kind of like a breakdown of both of their social games. And these are two phenomenal social players. And I like that we started to kind of see them both go to like angry levels, like Tony speaking llama levels as far as they're going to go. So I really like that. I really did. And I also like that Michelle called them all out for not clapping when she won. And then they all awkwardly clapped. That was amazing.
So good. I love that they all clapped after that. That was tough.
And so like, if we're going to say this like realistically, and this is getting into like, you know, when we do our predictions, but like considering nobody claps for Michelle at final 6 when she wins immunity, clearly it's an uphill climb. Tony doesn't want her in the final 3. Sarah doesn't want her in the final 3. They want to go together. They want to have Denise. If Michelle does get to the final 3, there's got to be some way that people are finding this to be impressive because of like these little moments where it's very clear nobody wants her there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
I had a couple more just like little quick notes, and most of them are pretty Michelle based. Loved her at Jeff, blue button down, sharing khakis.
Amazing.
So good. Her asking Jeff if she could keep the coin, and without missing a beat, he tells her no. That was tough. And you're frozen. But Phil, I'm going on a Michelle complimenting streak.
I heard it. You said about the coin. I love that.
I don't even know if this is a conspiracy theory, so I don't know what I'm conspiring about, but I'm just saying. Michelle goes up there. Jeff talks about like, okay, if you flip it, it's safe. And if you flip it on the other side, it's not safe. Is this the first time ever that Jeff asked her if she definitely wants to play it for herself? She was not questioning that. And then he brought that up to her. I cannot think of a time when someone brings up an idol and says nothing. And then Jeff goes, whoa, 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 who are you playing that for?
No, well, she said, I think I'm going to play it for me. And he's like, you think? Are you sure?
She was like, I'm going to play this. And then he goes, who are you playing it for? And then she goes,
maybe, yeah.
I'm splitting hairs here, but I noticed that. And I get that the conversation was going around it, but I thought that was odd. Jeremy looks like a sad puppy dog. He looked adorable.
He did.
Small other moments. Wendell wore Danny's Kansas City jersey, which I thought was cute. When Nick won that immunity, it was kind of like whenever a rookie hits a home run, they run the bases and then they go into the dugout and no one claps for them. That was the same thing with Nick, except I think it's because they actually wanted him out. And most important question of the night, where did they get a mirror?
I don't know. I have no idea. I know there's something with rewards this season that we're just not seeing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Once Upon an Island brings up a great scene. That was
amazing. Totally.
I was previewed earlier this week, but the 5-day work week versus 7-day work week was just unbelievable.
Unbelievable. That whole interaction between Jeremy and Tony was like Sean and Hunter having a conversation back in Marquesas. Like it's so funny how it's just like you're trying to convince somebody and like the person's just not going to ever listen to you. And the whole 5-day thing is so hilarious. And Tony just not budging on it and being like, no, I work 5 days. And Jeremy, that's because you're a cop, but you do get weekends, right? Like so good. I love it. So
good. I think that's all I got though. For those who are keeping track on prop bet, Nick and Michelle both went individual immunity. Michelle blurred her mouth. She said last night was an effing cluster F, which is a sentence I've never heard, but will continue to use after tonight.
Might have been in Fantastic Mr. Fox because they say cluster cuss all the time, and they might have said that was a cuss and cluster cuss. That might have been in there. So
that's fantastic. I have never seen that movie. Upsettingly,
you should watch that.
Well, we have a long off season ahead of us.
Alexa, we do have a long off season ahead of us, but who is our final guest for season 40?
Well, we've talked to him before. Speaking of long, we have talked to him before. He has been a dear, dear friend of this podcast for many years. He is the reason, dare I say it, sole reason that we were able to round out all 20 guests that we had for the Survivor Winners at War winner retrospectives. this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. We will be joined. Someone says, intern, please. Oh, no. We will be joined by none other than the Green Monster, Mr. Troyzan Robertson. Get excited, everyone. It has been a while since we've had him on. We are huge, huge fans of him. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild finale.
And anybody who is wondering, he, in his winter retrospective for Sarah, said that the Troyzan alliance was going to happen, and it was going to involve Tony and Sarah and Michelle. And would you look at how Michelle wasn't a part of that alliance at all, but is in the final 5 with 3 of the 5 are the Troyzan podcast. So here we go. It's going to be something.
It's going to be great. Phil, fantastic transition. I fumbled the pickup, but that was a good one.
Yeah. So here we go. We will see everybody on Sunday at an undisclosed time, or do we have a time? I don't remember.
6 p.m. Eastern. Glad you're at the
6 p.m. Eastern. That's right. I wake up to these text messages, and you never know what you're going to wake up from Troy. So anyway, I will see everybody on Sunday. Can't wait.
Bye. Do I have to